connection. I'm going to mute us out. I'm glad I checked. It didn't stream. Hello, hello, hello. How are you, Steve?
Good, Marky Mark. How are you?
Good, mate. Good, mate. Good to be on here back again for another episode of PowerUp Live.
Yes, hopefully our second one without any technical difficulties.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
So I did a little bit of promoting here in advance to see if get some more folks here listening in.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Hopefully you don't hear that. I've got a dog running around my legs here.
I did just hear a little yap from the dog.
Yeah. Hopefully he will not create a technical difficulty for us. Lots of stuff to talk about this week. It's been an interesting week. I've got my new plan is to post on like Mondays or Tuesdays.
Gotcha.
In advance, so we can kind of see the reaction of what people think about things that things I might have been talking about, and see if there's interest in bringing them up on the show, or if I just bored everybody to tears. But no,
I think it's great. I'm a big proponent of making sure that you schedule content at the same time each week, and so I think that you're doing it at the start of the week, right? That's going to have a flow-on effect. I think it's positive.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so far I've done it once. We'll see if I actually maintain that schedule. My blogging is about as erratic as it gets, but nobody seems to notice.
No, the thing is, I think you're frequent enough, right? It might be erratic, but it's frequent and it's always on point, the topics you're covering.
So one of the things that was occurring to me, and this was coming off of the recent announcement about the new pricing for the PowerApps standalone, PowerApps and Flow standalone. And standalone is a key word there that lots of people didn't seem to grasp what that meant. But particularly this per app pricing of $10.
Right.
And the thought process, of course, with Microsoft is, we got this PowerApps, and let's we want to have it flourish. We want to have 1,000 flowers bloom, right? So let's make it pretty inexpensive for users to use these simple apps. But the fact is, they don't have to be simple. They don't have to be simple at all. When you look at PowerApps, what was P2, because this is the same capability that you're building on for this $10 SKU.
Yeah.
You got the full power. You got CDS there. You've got the full power of the platform. Everything you could ever do in XRM, you could do here. You just don't have the stuff that Microsoft has built of their own on CDS and includes in their license.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you need it, maybe you don't. If you do, maybe you build it, maybe you don't. But it really opened up. Yeah, Jason wants to know if we're talking about licensing again. The licensing seems to be a perennial topic, particularly since they change it about every 20 minutes. So,
but Steve, just with some clarification of why this has popped up again, you released a post earlier this week that showed that you could, was it 92% reduction in licensing costs? That must have got some people's attention. I know that I've been hit up by Microsoft staff even about that post and chatting about, is this going to cause a problem to the ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, and it's legit, right? I mean, I didn't just pull that number out of thin air. I mean, that number comes from, I have customers right now that are paying $115 for the enterprise plan. Now, we know that license is going away also, but in the meantime, they're paying $115 right now for the enterprise plan SKU. And I look at what it is that their organization is doing with the product, and they're not doing anything with that product that they couldn't do on a custom Power App.
Yep.
That would cost them $10. I mean, there's zero sacrifice for them. I'm not talking about, if you guys will save 92%, if you want to give up a whole bunch of stuff. In their particular scenario, they would give up absolutely nothing because they're not using a bunch of stuff that's out there.
Yeah.
So straight up, 92%. Undeniable. I mean, nobody can argue that is a possibility because I can see it in front of my face.
Yeah, I saw your calculations and they seem to work for me. I thought that it might not work, but it definitely seems to stack up.
It's a bunch of ifs, right? I mean, if the customers, depending on how they're using the product, depending on what they were sold, and a lot of customers were sold plans. Now, a lot of those, and Ben Ballmer had mentioned in one of the social posts about a lot of those folks, they're on EAs, so they're not paying anywhere near 115. Okay, then their savings wouldn't be 92%. Their savings would be something less, provided they can get by with something being built on a Power App.
Yeah.
And, obviously an investment has to be made, right? The Power App by itself isn't going to do shit. So, you got to have somebody build the Power App to do what it is you're using Dynamics for. So there's an investment to be made up front, but it's a one-time investment, right? The development costs are not recurring. The real money is in that recurring. And in that example I had of 150 users, which is not an enormous, organization, you're talking about a savings of $12,000, $13,000 a month.
Yeah.
You can afford to spend some development dollars to save that kind of money.
That a month, right?
Every month.
That's definitely some serious coin.
So someone's asking about applying it to an existing Dynamics 365 instance, pure CDS. So this is an interesting question. And you had brought up several times before about the fact that we don't have the sales schema in CDS.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that you could actually get the sales schema is by adding one sales license, right?
Yep.
That'll give you that schema,
100%.
and then you can license everyone else as a P2 user.
Yep.
The problem there, since you are dealing with Dynamics 365, is you're going to circle back to that restricted entities issue. Because now you have put into your CDS, by virtue of that sales license, you've added to your CDS some entities that are restricted. So So if you got your P2 user using one of those restricted entities, they still need a sales license. So it becomes kind of a circle there.
Yeah, but hang on a second. A restricted entity, what is your interpretation of a restricted entity?
Well, sorry about that. I got a dog driving me absolutely nuts here because his mom is not home.
It's fine.
You know, it's not my definition of restricted entities. It's Microsoft's, right?
So,
they've decided that there's a couple of key things that, like for example, in customer service, they've decided that the incident entity. I'm sorry.
I'm just laughing at you with the dog. There you go. Oh, he's
by the way, he's sitting over here.
What's his name?
This is Jax.
Jax, there you go.
Get him up there by the window where he can watch for his mom.
Our first guest on the show is Jax.
Yeah, our first live guest in studio.
Yeah, very cool, very cool.
So they decided that the case entity, kind of the essence of the customer service app was the case entity. So if you're going to use our case entity, our incident entity, labeled case, then you need to have the customer service license. What it didn't have anything to do with your ability to replicate that, which everybody got confused about that. Oh, you can't build a case entity; it's restricted. You can build whatever the hell you want.
Yep.
You just can't use theirs. That they have got all their logic spinning off of without having the right license.
Hang on a second, because one of the problems I have with this is that common data model, and the way I've read it, is that the common data model is free. It's open source. It's available to all, right? So under core, that's accounts, contacts, and a bunch of activities, of course. And then there's a sales schema, there's a customer service schema, et cetera, et cetera.
Sales schema, service schema is not out there on GitHub. That's not out there open source. That's not out there available.
And that's the thing. If you want an upgrade path, which is some of the questions, can the P2 that we know it now be an upgrade path to Dynamics? You need to make those schemas available so they naturally are. Now, I wouldn't interpret, and I might be wrong, that if you happen to use, for example, the case entity or opportunity entity, in other words, it's a schema in a database, it's a table in database. You're not using any logic above it. You're not using any of the business rules, the logic, the intelligence, anything like that. You just want to, through your P2 app, just drop some data in there because other people in your organizations might have access or might be licensed specifically with the sales module, the customer service module. So you want to, if you like, drop some data into the case center or drop some data into the opportunity from an app. I wouldn't see that as breaching the restricted license that me chucking data in would require a license. Are you saying I would need to have a sales or a customer service license to drop some data in there only?
Well, I don't know where the line is, and whether it's just dropping data, or what the term of using a restricted entity would be, how deep they're getting there. But that's the point. You make a good point. In my opinion, there's no value in a data model. A data model. I mean, it's a table called opportunity with some fields. I mean, I can come up with one out of whole cloth, just out of the back of my mind. I don't even need Microsoft. So I can go look at any of Microsoft's applications and see that entire schema. I can go do a trial of Salesforce and I can see their entire data schema for an opportunity. It's nothing sacred about the data model for an opportunity or an incident or anything else. There's no value to the data model. The value really in these applications is in the logic that whoever, whether it's Microsoft, their first party, or an ISV, applies on top of that data model. There's the value. That's what people are buying from you. So, I don't think Microsoft is helping themselves by not open sourcing those data models. Now, I say that in one hand, but I also know that you can learn a lot about a application, like say a custom vertical application for an industry that you don't know about. You can learn a lot about that industry seeing nothing but the data model. You don't necessarily have to understand all the logic to see, oh, I see there's an entity called patient visit, or there's an entity called, parking lot identify, you can kind of,
But
from a data model, kind of reverse engineer a little bit.
Microsoft doesn't see that as IP.
What? They don't see what as IP?
The data model.
Well, clearly they do. They haven't released it.
Hang on a second, because the minute you use CDS, look at the T's and C's. We covered this about 6 or 8 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They say that they are going to use your data model, your entity schema, for their own applications if they see there's value in that, right? So if they're saying, we don't consider it IP, we're not taking your data, but we're going to take your model, I would say it's a clear indicator that they don't feel they're breaching somebody's IP by doing it. I think the only reason they haven't released sales, customer service, etc., is one, they haven't had the engineering to do it, as in the prioritization, that type of thing, to get it out there. And two, it's maybe just not a priority at the moment. But you can't have one standard on one side and a different standard on the other.
I still think it's politics. I still think that, and you circle back to my pod with Hayden, talking about the fear of the first party teams had about CDS.
Yep.
They're thinking that this would be the year someone builds a competitive app to. I mean, there's first party teams out there that are concerned about guys like, frankly, guys like me and what we're doing causing a problem for them.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not the only one going that route. And so holding back the data model, it's just one more little thing they can try and, create a little bit more of a hill for us to have to climb over.
Okay.
So I got a couple of comments there.
I'll let you. Can you go through all the comments? I've run out of something to drink and let's go to grab a drink.
Sure. Okay. Let me see. I think I covered eMargie's thing about the instances. Let me just double check here. I'm wondering if you can apply these one app license to users in an existing 365 instance, or is this going to be for new pure CDS instances? So the new licenses that were released have nothing to do with Dynamics 365.
I'm just saying cheers to Nick. He's just given me a heads up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick.
I did just write another post yesterday because, again, we continue to have confusion with people and mixing up terms and mixing up things, and people thinking they can, this per app, $10 per app, this has nothing to do with Dynamics 365. Yeah. This is 100% standalone CDS license construct, zero to do with Dynamics 365. There are things that are relevant to Dynamics 365 that have absolutely nothing to do with common data service. Yeah. For example, the restricted entities we've been talking about, that only has to do with using PowerApps in Dynamics 365 and making use of that. It has nothing to do with working in pure CDS because those entities don't exist there. They're not even there.
Yeah.
The other rumor that's still floating around, and this is partly because it was true at one time and is no more, was this idea that you couldn't replicate the functionality of the first-party apps in pure CDS with a Power App, which was really just going to stall. I mean, that was going to stop Power Apps from going anywhere. Yeah. I mean, I can't replicate any of your functionality. Well, then what the hell can I build? I can't build anything.
Yeah.
So that one didn't last very long. That's been gone for quite a while. It was funny. Gus Gonzalez, I told you he was always hammering me about that. Always trying to call me out like in front of Microsoft folks at Summit and stuff like that. And say, so are you actually able to build your own opportunity entity if you want to? And finally, he got it actually on stage directly from Charles Lamanna. Yeah. When once again, he was trying to throw me under the bus, and Charles says, yeah, absolutely. You can do that if you want to. and so Gus got permanently shut up on that one. And now I was listening to him on a podcast the other day, or one of his videos, talking about, well, you guys know, of course, you can build whatever you want. So it's just funny to watch him now come circle 100% back around being Mr. Proponent of building whatever you want.
Yeah, so
Nick had said something a little while ago about the team licensing. Yeah, it had to do some backpedaling. And a team license was sitting right where PowerApps wanted to be, was part of the problem. That's really why they had to come back and lock down that team member license, because it was, well, in addition to it obviously being radically misused because it didn't have any technical enforcement. Yeah, it was sitting in a position in the landscape where the PowerApps P2 wanted to be.
Yep.
So
Hey,
they had to lock that one down.
yeah.
Yep.
Jason, yeah, that's kind of more of a rumor. Just check out that kind of licensing bit has disappeared a while ago in reference to that. And remember, the future is around power platform rather than dynamics, as in a lot of the commentary coming out lately. So you're seeing the changes in licensing is very pro the power platform, even though there's also been some dynamics licensing changes. Just for those on the chat, just as an FYI, we can't see who you are. We don't, the YouTube platform doesn't play that through to us. So please introduce yourself, especially if you've got.
Yeah, we can see the chat. We can see the chat, but we can't.
So what I'm saying on the chat, introduce yourself. So if you're Red Bear Technologies Limited, for example, who are you really?
Yeah.
We can see who Jason is. Jason, great to have you on there. I just see there's our very early guest in there was Mala Reddy, and he actually had a question that he posted on LinkedIn today, which was, what about building power apps for specific industries? And so, what's happening, if you like, in that space? And and this has really come from interviewing a bunch of people on my podcasts, specifically Virgin Atlantic was the one that comes to mind most recently. And then there's the big rail company in France. I can't remember their name. But what they have done in these organizations are a couple of things around verticalization. So I don't think you're going to see power apps from a industry-wide vertical story, because what happens, industries are creating competitive advantage by building power apps internally. So generally, the kind of model that Microsoft is encouraging is take a look at the Power Apps Center of Excellence Starter Kit. So if you just Google that, you'll quickly find it. And this is a tool for you to, within an organization, to actually kick off developing Power Apps for a vertical industry. That's one thing. The next is some of the rhythms that you need to set in place around identifying the subject matter experts in your business, right? And so these are people that are not technologists, but they understand their business process really, really well. They've been doing it for years. They know that they use, Excel to do this. They use some other tool to do that. They might use paper-based processes, etc. And then start running some regular education cadence. So show and tell workshops internally, like maybe lunch and learns. App in a day is another thing that's working really well, where you run app of a day inside a company. So all staff that are involved in that know they're going to, go off-site maybe to a boardroom somewhere. They're going to spend the entire day, and they're just going to focus on eliminating a business challenge or come up with a solution that is Power App centric. And then the third area I get you to look at, and I know Steve has a bit of opinion, maybe different than mine on this, is take a look at the industry accelerators. The industry accelerators started out with this lens of dynamics, but they're quickly pivoting to be CDS based. In other words, no dependency on dynamics, although some will maintain it. And of course, there's ones for banking, healthcare, education, nonprofit, automotive, and apparently media has been announced and coming shortly. So just think about, how do you create that rhythm, that cadence within a company? I don't think that you're going to see partners start running out there and building Power App verticalization outside of ISV, or if they're an SI, they're going to do it. And of course, they're going to target their customers. They're not going to make it publicly available because that's IP that they're developing. So I hope that's a take on, your question. Thanks for that post on LinkedIn. It's appreciated. And thanks for being watching the show again.
Yeah. See, we got some folks introducing. Hi, Cindy, Mark, Charles, Jason, Nick. We got some names on here. Nice to put some names with some folks. And Jason did have one comment I wanted to address, because it's once again circles back to that confusion where he thought about there's something in the T&Cs that said if you did, I think he was referring to building your own, say, opportunity entity, that you still had to pay for a sales license. And once again, that's a misinterpretation. That is if you use a restricted entity. So if I built a Power App and I use Microsoft's one of Microsoft's restricted entities, I would have to pay for that license. Of course, those restricted entities don't exist in CDS. I guess my wife must be home.
Yeah.
Those restricted entities don't exist in CDS unless you have Dynamics 365 to put them in there in the first place. So, definitely some confusion out there. And actually, if you read the stuff, because I think what we got going on is a lot of people aren't actually reading. They're listening to what other people think they heard, and spreading that around without actually reading. It's fairly clear when you read what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
But
that's the problem with
I think the first person that read it wrong, and everybody's been repeating what that person said.
That's right. And as you say, it's massively hearsay, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, when you ask somebody to drill in, oh, where did you hear that? Like, where can you validate that? Oh, I don't know. Somebody said, and it's just like, it's not true.
Yeah, exactly. It's just what they thought, what they assumed would be the case. You know, I don't know. Or maybe, you know, it's a potential misinformation, trying to guide people down the wrong path.
Yeah.
I know that for a while there, you know, because we had built our own case and opportunity entity with Rapid Start from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
I'd gotten that from, I mean, I went straight to Charles because I read everything and it all said, from what I read, I thought I could do it just fine. But everybody out there was saying, oh, you know, you can't do that. So I went straight to Charles, and Charles said, yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, help out.
Yeah.
And so we did it. But then I continued to have people asking me, hey, are you able to do that?
Yeah.
I just didn't answer. You know, so I wasn't going to go out and create some misinformation and tell people no. But I also didn't want to encourage people to go do what I was doing, you know, and follow our path necessarily.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't care. You know, I know partners well enough to know that they continue in a straight line, regardless of what is going on around them, mostly to their detriment.
Yeah.
So definitely not too worried about partners being up to speed. Never been a problem.
Yeah. So what do you know, just to change topics, what do you know about Microsoft Catalyst?
Catalyst. I don't know much about Catalyst. You and I were talking about it briefly, but I'm sure some folks would love to hear a little bit more about Microsoft Catalyst.
So I just had the two kind of most senior people on the program just on a call just before this one. Before I run a podcast, I like to get the guests on. We spend 10 to 15 minutes just making sure we're on the same page, try to make their audio as good as possible before we actually go live at the scheduled date in the coming weeks. And this is a new thing. It was released, Alyssa Taylor released a video around, I don't know, January, February this year talking about Microsoft Catalyst. So I thought it might have been a Microsoft-wide thing, but it's not. It's actually directly just inside the BizApps part of, it's one of those, I saw that. It's one of those parts just inside Microsoft. The Microsoft BizApps team. So it is a team of people. They're now deployed to London, the US, the UK, the US.
Sounds like military.
And Singapore, is where they've set up. And so what's happening here is that they're for high strategic accounts that need digital transformation. That's practical. And so I've got a podcast coming up in the next, it'll be about probably a month before it goes live with this team. But I tell you, Microsoft partners should look closely at Microsoft Catalyst and go, how does this apply to my business? In other words, am I doing or resourcing the same type of people? Because it covers a lot of stuff around change management, principles out of human-centered design, customer journey mapping, empathy mapping, prototypes of solutions that ultimately will use Microsoft digital assets to do something. But they're often run at a higher level in the business. So totally forget IT. Well, don't forget IT. What I'm saying is that it's clearly up in the senior management of companies that they're engaging with. We're talking, people that are going through this program at the moment are in the top 20 companies worldwide. So
it's interesting when you think about Microsoft on their hardware side, right? We've talked about things like Surface is an expensive device, but it's an aspirational device really meant to motivate the rest of the OEMs to build higher quality, higher caliber. And maybe we're seeing a little bit here of Microsoft trying to create, here is the service that is required today. And here are the kinds of skill sets. Here's what clients, whether the client even knows it or not, here's what the client requires in the way of help today. And partners, watch this Catalyst model and see if maybe it isn't something you should be emulating.
100%. And I tell you, the partners that get on early, if they're not already on, because a lot of what they're doing here, I was running in my bit practice out of Australia, which comes from these roots of ProSci, these roots of human-centered design. IDEO is a big leader. A lot is coming out of Harvard in this area. McKinsey is another company doing a lot in the space. And why do they do it? Because it absolutely works. It really can move the dial from a profitability point of view for customers massively. And I just think that a modern partner, SI, really needs to look at, or a value-added reseller, really needs to look at this and go, do you know what? This is a set of skills that has not traditionally been in my organization. How do I equip and enable myself for it?
Yeah, we're probably in the most interesting time from a standpoint of having technology that could significantly improve the profitability of a customer at a lower cost than ever before.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of partners historically have looked at customer opportunities, of course, through their own lens of how much money am I going to be able to make on this customer?
Yeah.
How much can I sell this customer? And I'm using the word sell this customer. How many service hours can I potentially bill them over time? What can I convince them to continue to pay for? And not a high enough emphasis on putting themselves in the customer's chair of is the customer getting an ROI on all this shit, or are they just throwing money at it because you're a pretty good seller or you got a pretty good sales team? Is the person on the customer's end, someone who even gives a shit, or they just checking in every day, and their job security is partly supported by continuing a project that may or may not make any sense. And we've seen so many of those over the years where customers, especially big customers, just spent massive amounts of dollars, technology and services to get absolutely nothing at the end of the day. And we're just in that position today where for so little money and so little effort, the ROI expectation of customers should be shifting from what it was to, I'm looking for ROI in a month. I want to start seeing ROI
correct
on this effort in a month, which means the cost of this effort has to be low in order to get to an ROI quickly. And the technology has to be where it is in order to be able to do that, within a month's time. And we're there with both of those things. Yeah.
So true. So
but Nick's out here crying about portals.
No, because Thomas, which he's from Oslo, Thomas, he's asked about that question around portals, and so Nick's responding to him there.
Oh, gotcha. I thought that was Nick.
No, he's doing your job. He's giving correct answers to the people on the show. Thank you, Nick.
Appreciate that, Nick.
I owe you one of these when we're in Orlando. Now, speaking of Orlando,
I'm curious whether Nick, before we leave that, I'm curious whether, Nick is answering questions about the portal licensing and pricing, but I'm curious what Nick's opinion of that portal and licensing and pricing is. Is the portal licensing and pricing going to be okay? Is it a big problem? Is it a big problem for many, or is it a big problem for a few? I'm curious what his thoughts are on that high level. I've got my own, but he's the portal expert. So
okay. So let's see what he comes up with. Now, we just mentioned Orlando coming up. We've got some good news regarding Orlando. Found out this morning that we've been approved to live stream from that event, you and I, similar to what we did at MBAS.
We're going to be like the official live stream, right?
The official live stream in Orlando. So the live stream at Orlando User Group Summit and Extreme. Are you all right with your microphone there, man? That sounded awesome.
Sorry.
But the other thing is tell us, you've got some speaking slots now. What are they? Or we have some more speaking slots. What are they?
Yeah. So I'm doing a couple of sessions at Extreme. I'm going to be doing some sort of a panel of, I think it's an ISV panel. I'm going to moderate at Extreme, and I think that's for Executive Exchange. So that'll be the folks that are paying the extra money to get in that smaller, more intimate group. And of course, I'm going to have you on that panel.
Yep.
And then I got another session, and to be honest, I don't remember what it is right now. It just escapes what it is, but another session out there that I'll be doing. But I'm mostly excited about repeating what we did out there at Business Applications Summit. That was just a lot of fun. And even now when I go back and look at some of those videos, some of the folks we were talking to out there, I really enjoyed that. It seemed like everyone else did too. So I'm looking forward to continuing.
Now, just forget that Streamlab thing. I've tried to disconnect it, but for some reason that rubbish keeps. There you go. I actually just removed it. I think that keeps popping in. But just speaking, basically my wife in the month of July came up with this idea of no fly July. So I've had a whole month of not flying, which is kind of foreign to me. But making up for it this month, I've got Vancouver, Amsterdam, Belgium, Manchester, and Norway on my destination list for this month, all booked. And the interesting one in Norway, I'm speaking at the Power Platform Saturday in Oslo.
Neat.
Now, this is, Marius's brainchild. Fantastic work. But just looking at the lineup of speakers, Malin, now I never get her name right because it's, the new MVP on talent, right? Amazing.
Put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. But she's speaking. Yuka, of course, is speaking. Joel Griffin, Marius, Sarah Critchley is going to be there. Jonas is running almost a whole. Yeah, it looks like a whole half-day session, a whole half day.
A whole half?
Julian Sharp, Thomas, even on this call, he's got a session on 3 tips to increase user adoption with PowerApps.
Awesome.
Cool. Summit, Muhammad's going to be there. Mustafa. I always love his last name, man. It reminds me of the Lion King. Muhammad Mustafa. And then, one of the key sponsors of Gustav, of course, from Sweden.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, when I look at this list, himself's there. He's got a staff member there with Jonas attending. I'm impressed with that guy, how he really, as a partner, and I mentioned this in one of my posts recently, how he really proactively puts his money where his mouth is and engages the community and encourages all his staff member. I think of like half his company are going to Orlando, all the way from Sweden, and multiple sessions being presented by them. And it's not like, they're going to pick up customers over in Orlando, right? Because their target audience is Swedish companies.
Yeah.
But that's their passion for contribution to the community. I love it.
Yeah, Gustav definitely falls in that category of one of those people you can tell really, really cares. I mean, almost cares. He almost cares too much. He really, really cares about everything that's happening in here, to the point to where you could see he's the type of guy that he would let something keep him up at night. I try not to. I mean, there's all sorts of problems and issues, good, bad, otherwise, going on the platform, but I still sleep like a baby. But he's a guy that'll bleed for it.
I'm in Manchester the week after next. Is when I'm up there. My wife is up.
When you're in Vancouver.
No, I saw Manchester. When you're in Vancouver, end of the month, Nick. I'm there for about a week. So any recommendations of what to see? Going up there for a wedding of somebody from DXC Eclipse, going to their wedding. So yeah, that's the plan. Anything else in there? By the way,
Nick did come back on my question about what his thoughts are about Power App portals and kind of his one word there, problem. He's seeing some challenges there. I guess George Dubinsky ought to be pretty happy. George has a very inexpensive portal solution.
I've been using it on my website for coming up a year now. George's solution directly integrates WordPress into CRM, all entities lit up. And I tell you, it's rock solid, works consistently, fantastic. And, for my 90-day mentoring challenge, someone fills in that form, bang, it's in CRM instantly. And I can start running my engagement, set up my appointments, that type of thing with those individuals. Saves me a massive amount of time, and it just works so simply.
Yeah, definitely something to look at as an option, depending on how this cost is gonna spin out for people with the Microsoft portals. I mean, the portal, coming back to that per app $10, an app as defined by Microsoft that fits in that $10 per user is you could have a model-driven app, which a lot of us have, and most people are probably very familiar with. You could also have a Canvas app for some sort of a mobile scenario, or maybe even embedded in your model. And you can also have a portal. So I mean, that's a pretty robust, well-rounded set of technologies that you could use for almost any business. But the portal situation financially has got to make sense for those businesses. So
yeah, Nick raised a good point there. API limits of portal access is another way, though. Microsoft is going to click the ticket on third-party portal options, right? API calls.
Yeah, I wonder what George is thinking about that.
Yeah,
how he's handling that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking up here on his website. Oh, sorry, on the plugin, which I just chucked into the.
By the way, George, you're welcome for the promotion of your thing here. It was not planned.
No, it wasn't planned, but I was actually going to write a blog post today when. So actually, I'll tell you what the blog post is. It's around coaching versus mentoring, and I was going to list all the tools that I use to run that 90-day mentoring challenge. So that's coming out this Thursday. But I didn't get, like, I already hit my word limit. I try to limit to around 1,000 per post to make sure I've covered the topic properly. And so, but I was going to call out his tool here. So that's why it was top of mind for me. It's been a fantastic solution. And he's got, like, I just see there that the, 800 plus installations of it and all 5-star ratings that he's had on it thus far. And it's a very slick tool. It's a very slick tool. St. George your bill. Yeah. We'll St. George the bill.
Exactly. Here's your advertising bill.
Yeah. No, like
that'll be our new advertising program. We don't ask for sponsors in advance. We just talk about something
and then send them the bill. I love it. Another post that's coming out this week from me, I just wrote it this morning, is talking about managed solutions that Microsoft put in your tenant that I consider spam.
Crapware,
bloatware. I did a clean install this morning for what I expected would be 2 solutions for the Dynamics 365 for sales, which should have been the core sales app. And the other solution would be playbooks. Instead, I got 32 managed solutions for field service, for customer service, for project service automation. I explicitly go through and screenshot and show what I requested and then the shit lot of content that I got in there.
Now this was a trial tenant, or was this a sandbox tenant?
Sandbox.
Yeah, I mean, because I was thinking maybe since it's in a trial scenario, that maybe they feel like they got some latitude. Hey, it's a trial, we're going to throw everything at you. But in a sandbox, I wouldn't expect that they're. I mean, that's my sandbox, right? I'm wanting there when I want, nothing more.
I've sold a shit ton of Dynamics across my career by making Dynamics look super simple.
Yep.
In other words, get rid of everything that's irrelevant to this customer so they focus on just the one thing that it does. I'm not trying to sell them the universe and blow the project out for NAM, because it's going to go through spend limits in that organization that they're not going to be able to sign off. So I'd much rather take a bite, deliver value, then take another bite. I'm still going to get the $1 million sale, the $2 million sale, but I'm going to do it bite by bite, not try to land the $1 million deal on day one, because I know that has to go to board approval. The management has to sign off on it. There's no way they're going to bite a big project. And what I see this doing is putting a ton of crapware, and I liken it to purchasing a new computer. The first thing, somebody like me does is wipe the drive, right? I install clean Windows. The problem is, can you install a clean instance where you need something like sales? Because I know you can just do a core CDS instance with nothing in it.
Right.
But then I think there's a bit of challenges around going and just getting sales added into a CDS like that. It's not as simple as just let's deploy it.
The same thing they had with the LinkedIn stuff here not that long ago, where all of a sudden they just pushed in the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I think there were 2 related solutions, just showed up overnight, a bunch of instances. Nobody asked for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's a solution that doesn't work unless you have a paid license for LinkedIn, which you can't assume that everyone has, of course. And the excuse they gave was they wanted to make it more convenient for customers that when they do decide
absolutely
they want the product. And I'm like, You saved them one goddamn click. I mean,
it's absolute bullshit because, you know, I've recently written a post on the LinkedIn Navigator installation and just if you don't have those 10 licenses, which is a multi-$1,000 purchase, they're putting it in for one reason only. So you click on it, take a look around, because this is the crazy thing is, I'm wondering, did marketing ask for all that shit to be pushed in there, or is it the engineering team pushing that stuff in there so their product gets used or visualized? Or, you know, I'd be interesting. Now, they're never going to share the metrics behind the scenes with us, but I think it's an old mentality for let sales do sales, marketing do marketing, and engineering stop putting your crapware all through this. Now, of course, it's not like any spam, right? Spam is fine if it's something that you want, then it's not spam, right? The definition of spam is me having something forced on me that I do not want.
So I got a couple of questions popping up here. Thomas has actually brought up a good one about my post about 90% cheaper. You know, how that impacts storage space. And I know that for the PowerApps P2 license, right, the original P2 license, the storage allocations for that were the same as they were for Dynamics 365. I don't remember what the numbers were, but I know they were the same. There's a pool and there's an allocation per user that adds to the pool. So the storage was the same as Dynamics 365. What I don't know is if this per app $10 model, I don't know what the storage implications are behind that. So I'm gonna do some homework on that one. That's a good point. You know, it's obviously has to include some storage. You can't use it without it, but is there a lower limit on what's allowed in that $10 than say in the $40 all you can eat from a storage side? I'll look at that one, Thomas. Good question. And CRM Ninja is saying that it's, you know, more than just one click to put in LinkedIn. Yeah, okay. So maybe it's 2 or 3, but the point is they're not the idea or the argument that they were trying to save steps for the customer. It's bullshit. That was my point there. How many actual steps they save is not as critical as just a bullshit argument.
Yeah, exactly. That's the CRM Ninja is EY. EY, good to have you on the call. Thanks, mate. Well,
I've got a couple of other things on your list to chat about.
I've covered everything on my list of things that were like top of mind that I'd been thinking about over the last couple of days. I think it's going to raise some concerns. I'm probably going to get some flack over this post about the solution stuff. For perhaps some Microsoft folks will not be too happy, but I just think
talking about the crapware.
Yeah. The crapware.
I don't think you're going to get any static. I mean, I think that we raised that when the LinkedIn stuff came out, and they immediately apologized and stopped it. So I think
what got stopped?
The pushing of the LinkedIn.
No, it's in there today, mate. They've not stopped it.
Really?
Yep. I counted all the solutions. I've screenshotted them all out to show what the hell.
Yeah, I mean, well, maybe what they stopped was because this was not where I was installing a new, we were installing a new environment. We're just bopping along, and all of a sudden one day these 2 LinkedIn Navigator solutions showed up in our tenant out of the blue. That annoyed everybody, and what my understanding was they stopped that behavior. But maybe that's not related to you installed the sales app. Maybe they bring in that bunch of crap with that sales app. So
yeah. Hey, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Is it Ina? Ina, you asked about 21 variant, and I was down there. It's actually called Mooncake, the Power Platform environment. So they're not officially calling it. This is in the Azure China data centers, which are on 21 variant. It's called Mooncake. If you take a look on my blog, I don't know if you've read my post, which I wrote the kind of week after leaving China, and I've got kind of all the information I can remember from. I was training a bunch of Microsoft staff down there around Dynamics 365 in the cloud. So they're not necessarily calling it the Power Platform, but of course it is Dynamics, which is underpinned by the Power Platform. But it is not got everything lit up, more around kind of things like AI, anything that's kind of API calls outside 21 variant. There's some restrictions, some government restrictions. Some of it is that they haven't been able to, engineering haven't been able to deploy all the working parts in their version of Azure yet. So that is coming. So the key thing to note is that Azure AD in China is not connected to Azure Global AD, and that's a legal break. So therefore, it's going to raise concerns like the App Store. How can apps, because App Store requires AD authentication, they're not authenticated in that environment. So yeah, it's bloody expensive. Like they're a factor of, I think, 25% more per license down there, with a minimum of 100 seats required just to turn an instance on. No free trials or anything like that at the moment, to my knowledge. Now, that was early days. It was 2 months ago when I was there, and it was just the week that it got launched. So it will change in time, but it's, there's not much information in market about it at the moment.
Interesting. Yeah, I do want to, we talked about, and you mentioned earlier how we kind of bashed the accelerators a little bit last week.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt bad because with the banking accelerator in particular, I was looking at that banking accelerator, and my first reaction looking at it, I was unimpressed.
Yep.
And then I saw, Neil Benson, who, is not one to keep things to himself, kind of jump out there.
Not at all.
And blow it up. And I kind of jumped on the bandwagon. And the result was we both had a call with James Galvin, who was the Microsoft guy who put that together, who apparently we hurt his feelings rather badly.
What, James Galvin's feelings?
Yeah, James Galvin was a little, his feelings were hurt that both Neil and I had bashed this accelerator that he kind of put his heart and soul in, which I get that. So, are
you calling somebody's child ugly?
Yeah, exactly. But we did have a nice chat about that accelerator and the accelerators in general, and a couple of things that were going on there. And I actually came back and kind of apologized that I may have jumped the gun a little bit in my in my critique. But one of the things hang
on, why did you backtrack, Steve? This doesn't sound right.
You know what? And it's funny because I hate people that do this, right? That jump on a bandwagon. But when it was the same day that I was looking at this accelerator and still kind of wrapping my thoughts around it, that I saw Neil jump out there and say, "Oh, this thing's a piece of crap."
Yeah.
And I was guilty of what I hate other people doing. And I was jumping on the bandwagon too quickly without enough information, without enough facts. And I jumped in and I said something like, "Yeah, this looks like a weekend project," or something. Yeah. And that wasn't
who else did you ask to come on that call that said they wouldn't join you because they didn't feel they knew enough about it?
Oh, that was some chicken ass named Mark Smith.
Exactly. See, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to go on. I'm not going to have a conversation.
Well, that was the call that followed that, where right. He just he's getting out to a couple of MVPs here, or bashing his tools and wanting to find out what our problems were with it. And so that's kind of a long way of saying that the accelerator is not as bad as I originally had thought.
Okay.
And a couple of things they're doing with the accelerators and that I think are important. And it's one of the things that we talked about last week, that the accelerators were making use of all the first party apps.
Yep.
And some of them, like the first healthcare accelerator, when they first launched that, I mean, it used every single one of the first party apps. It used sales, service, field service, and project service automation. It used all four of the first party apps, which made it feel initially like the accelerators were kind of a sales tool, that they were useless unless you had all four of the Microsoft first party apps. And if you think about the accelerator as ideally a tool for really, I mean, the target for that was ISVs. Instead of you ISVs all making up your own damn names for opportunities or customers, why don't we just, if you're in this vertical space, I see him.
You saw Whitman's response. Hey man, how are you, buddy?
That if you're in this vertical space and there's a bunch of ISVs out there, why don't we just all use the same term? so that it really is an ISV. The accelerators really are an ISV play.
Yeah.
But one of the things they did with the banking, and James had said that he had to kind of fight for this a little bit, was it's available in multiple kind of steps. You can install the core banking accelerator on bare CDS. Doesn't require any first-party apps. Doesn't require anything.
Yeah.
You can then add to that the banking accelerator sales component or service component, which is where they start, introducing how it can work with some of the first-party stuff. So, to me, that was a huge move as an ISV. And I know they're going back now to the earlier accelerators and kind of looking at a similar plan where there will be, basically we talked about before, the data schema. I can get the data schema, I can put it on CDS.
Yep.
I don't need your apps and your logic necessarily for what I'm doing. That's great as a showpiece, but so definitely some progress around those accelerators. And yes, I would say that Neil was feeling a little cowed in that call with James as well. I think we both kind of jumped the gun on that one, Matt. So I wonder how long Matt has been lurking in our...
Yeah. So Mr. Whitterman, how are you liking the new job at Hitachi? No longer at Click Dimensions? He must be one of those original crew from Click that has left. And you're now become a consultant. You'll have to start doing some work, mate.
Yeah, we got a 20-second delay, apparently, from what we're saying to it hitting the live feed, which having a real-time conversations a little challenging. It may take a little while. It's like we're talking to Matt on the moon right now.
Yeah. So it looks like we've got 5 minutes to wrap things up. Is there anything that's top of mind for you, Steve-O, before we wrap?
Man, I think we beat it pretty good. I'm just curious to see if any. I mean, we got more people. It looks like engaged in this episode, which is so happy to see, because I was really feeling like if we weren't going to be able to get past our technical challenges that we had up until last week, that this just wasn't going to get anywhere. And it was the idea was so great. I was having so much fun with it, but the technical stuff was making it. I'm so glad to be past that. And it looks like we're starting to get some folks, engaging and participating. And so I'm very excited about doing this every week and keep going. And our upcoming the live at Summit. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. Yeah,
and who knows? I mean, we've applied to see if we can do this at Ignite as well. So let's see if we get some Ignite airtime. I've been told by people inside Microsoft that were privy to what we did at MBAS, that they would like it to be repeated each year at Microsoft BizApp Summit. They love the whole live streaming with, key personnel, getting those conversations on. So we'll keep that up.
Anybody listening, you can definitely go to Mark's channel. There's a playlist right there on his channel of the MBAS interviews. They're mostly mine, because the ones that Mark did on the first day, we had such terrible bandwidth that they were almost unusable. Second day, we had good bandwidth, and I ended up doing most of them on the second day, but kind of get an idea of what we're expecting to do again at Summit and Night.
Listen, if any of the people listening, I see we've got, somebody who's going to be a future Dynamics consultant there. Satya. Is it Satya? Yeah.
Sarita?
Sahita. Thanks for that. Listen, if there's topics that you want us to cover on air, just hit either Steve or me up. We're pretty active on Twitter. We're active on LinkedIn. Use any of the commenting tools, private message if you want to keep it out of public domain. But let us know. Yeah, Nathan, meet you at Summit. Sounds awesome.
Cool.
But we'll go anywhere that you want us to go on the show.
Yeah, we got an hour to fill.
No. Jason, you want more on licensing? My gosh, haven't we covered licensing enough for the last couple of weeks? Can you not get enough?
Every show will start with 30 minutes on licensing.
Yeah.
And it'll all be new content,
Our interpretation of license. Yeah, it'll be new. Yeah, it'll change each week, right?
Yep.
Crazy.
Yeah, Wave 2. Definitely. I have not turned it on yet. I'm going to be turning that on a couple of environments here this week to take a look at some, do some reading on some of it, and sounds good. I know that some of the things that were in that Wave 2 are some things that some customers have been asking for specifically. So I'm kind of eager to see what they.
I'll be turning it on this week as well. Definitely
Yeah,
check
so
it
I'll
out.
have some thoughts on it.
Awesome. Well, we will let's share the main screen. There we go. We hit share. I think that's how we do it.
Well, this is our goodbye.
This is good, Steve. It's never goodbye with you, mate. It's till next time.
Till next time. Till next time, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, bring that dog back next time.
Yeah. Where'd he go? I gotta go. He's probably up in the house pooping somewhere.
Alrighty. Cheers, mate.
All right. Bye-bye.